want you to do something.
What?
Something important. Billy. Oh, Billy. 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 Oh, Billy. I hate Carrie White.
Who? In 1976, Hollywood audiences were hit with a blood-soaked revelation, a high school horror flick that wasn't just scary, but almost too real. And part of that realism, Sissy Spacek, fully nude and drenched in steam, leading a group of nervous young actresses to strip down in solidarity for a locker room scene that's still talked about today. But Carrie isn't just remembered for the skin. It was Stephen King's first trip to the big screen, and the result was a haunting blend of art house stylization and teen trauma that launched multiple careers and left a psychic stain on prom night forever. The mastermind behind the madness was director Brian De Palma, the Hitchcock disciple known for his voyeuristic camera work and love of twisted suspense. De Palma didn't go soft just because his subject was teenage girls. He went harder, and he surrounded himself with a cast that was about to become iconic. Sissy Spacek as Carrie White, Piper Laurie as her deranged mother Margaret, and a murderer's row of young talent like Amy Irving, William Catt, P.J. Soles, Nancy Allen, and a babyface John Travolta in his first movie role. Yep. Welcome back. Cotter's own Vinnie Barbarino went from sitcom heartthrob to pig blood slinging prom date in one foul swoop. The story, of course, begins with Carrie White, a shy, awkward girl with telekinetic powers, bullied by classmates and oppressed by her religious fanatic of a mother. After a traumatizing incident in the locker room where she has her first period and gets mocked mercilessly for it, Carrie becomes a school pariah. But when Sue Snell, one of the guilt-ridden girls, convinces her boyfriend Tommy to take Carrie to the prom as an act of kindness, things seem like they might turn around. Until Chris Hargensen, played with biting cruelty by Nancy Allen, and her dim-witted boyfriend Billy, Travolta, hatch a cruel prank involving a bucket of pig's blood. The result? A telekinetic meltdown of biblical proportions. But what really happened behind the scenes of Carrie is just as juicy. For starters, that infamous locker room scene wasn't just titillating, it was controversial. De Palma wanted the scene to be dreamy and sensual, not gratuitous, and Spacek set the tone by committing fully. When the other actresses hesitated about getting nude, Spacek calmly undressed and walked onto set. P.J. Soles later said that it made them all feel a little ridiculous being shy. And soon, everyone was on board. That moment of camaraderie gave the scene its eerie authenticity. Spacek's commitment didn't stop there. She stayed in character the entire shoot, isolating herself from the rest of the cast, just like Carrie would. On one of the first days, she even announced to the group that she loved them all, but she wouldn't be hanging out because she wanted to stay in character. She wore the same old dress to her audition, one her mom made in 7th grade, and slicked back her hair with Vaseline. The role wasn't even hers to lose. De Palma had another actress in mind, but he allowed the audition as a favor to Spacek's husband, Jack Fisk, who was also the film's art director. Spacek walked in looking like a sad ghost of adolescence and walked out with the role. Before anyone could change their mind, she left. Meanwhile, De Palma was holding joint auditions with his buddy George Lucas, who was casting a little movie called Star Wars. That's how Amy Irving ended up screen testing for both Princess Leia and Sue Snell. William Catt, who played Tommy Ross, also read for Star Wars at the time. Fun fact, Irving and Catt had actually dated before getting cast as Sue and Tommy. They even did a steamy screen test for a scene that never made it into the final cut. One where they got physical in the back seat of a car. Although the scene was cut, the real-life comfort between the actors helped shape their on-screen chemistry. Then there's Piper Laurie, who hadn't acted in a movie since The Hustler in 1961. When she read the script, she thought Carrie was a comedy. She laughed at Margaret White's fire and brimstone monologues, thinking they were satirical. De Palma had to pull her aside and explain that no, this was deadly serious. Once she recalibrated, she turned in one of the most terrifying performances in horror history, earning an Oscar nomination in the process. Laurie said she felt liberated playing Margaret, like she could fully lean into the theatrical wickedness without restraint. Nancy Allen and John Travolta, meanwhile, thought their roles were comic relief. Only when they saw the finished film did they realize they were actually the villains. Allen later admitted she played Chris as a brat, not a monster. But De Palma edited it to bring out the malice. The production wasn't without its scares either. Betty Buckley, who played the gym teacher, was reportedly terrified while filming Carrie's revenge-fueled massacre. With real fire on set and practical effects, she later confessed to thinking she might actually die during filming. The prom scene alone took over 2 weeks to shoot. Spacek, ever the trooper, insisted on sleeping in her bloody dress between takes so the continuity would stay perfect. When Carrie hit theaters, it was a critical and commercial smash. De Palma's split-screen climax became a hallmark of the genre, and critics praised the film's artistry and suspense. Roger Ebert called it a horror movie with style and energy, placing it among the best of its kind. And while Stephen King initially gushed about De Palma's adaptation, saying it was more artistic and oblique than his own novel, he cooled on it later, calling it just a good movie, not a great one. Still, even he couldn't deny the cultural footprint it left. Let's not forget, King's name was so unknown at the time, they even misspelled it in the trailer. They called him Stephen, with a V. That changed overnight. With Carrie, King's reign over Hollywood officially began. Over 100 adaptations later, it all started with a bucket of blood and a girl named Carrie White. So remember that locker room scene we teased at the top? It wasn't just a cheap thrill. It was a moment of total artistic commitment. When Sissy Spacek dropped her robe, it wasn't about shock. It was about trust. And the rest of the cast followed, turning what could have been sleazy into something strangely vulnerable. That's the secret power of Carrie. It walks a razor-thin line between horror and heartbreak, and it never blinks. Now it's time to hear from you. What's your favorite moment from Carrie, and do you think any of the remakes even come close to capturing the magic of the original? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's talk about this horror classic that never dies.